should be, yeah, check with my. So I'm here not in my capacity as regional vice president for IFSW, but as a member of the Social Workers Association of Zambia, as the Secretary General of the Social Workers Association of Zambia. And I just want to share a few things line with networking and organization capacity development approaches. I've got a PowerPoint and I'm not quite sure whether colleagues have been able to see it. Mayaka, are you able to project the PowerPoint? Okay, so I'll start. I think in my presentation, I'll start by, giving a brief about our national association in Zambia, just as an introduction. I'll talk about who we are as an association. I'll talk about the affiliation and our legal status. Then I'll also talk about the networking, and then the association's partnerships and networks, current partnerships and networks. Then I also talk about the organization capacity building blocks and checklists. Then I'll also share with you the critical path, which I call the critical path on organization capacity assessment. So this is a tool that we use as a national association in Zambia to self-assess ourselves. And then I'll also point some key elements in building meaningful networks and partnerships. And then I'll conclude. And I hope at the end of this presentation, we'll be able to engage each other, learn from each other, and inspire each other. So the Social Workers Association of Zambia is a membership-based professional body of social workers. It aspires to promote best practices for social work training and practice in Zambia. And I can just indicate that at the regional level, we have the International Federation of Social Workers, Africa region. We also have the Association of Schools of Social Work in Africa. But at national level, what we've done is that the educators part or component is part of the National Association as a committee that looks at education. So we did not want to have separate associations. We decided to combine. So the association seeks to promote and uphold ethical standards of social work training and practice, then promote the interests of all social work professionals, seek to safeguard and protect the interests of service users, those that we serve as social workers, as well as seeks to promote incorporation of indigenous knowledge in social work training in Zambia. So our vision, which has not changed, of course, we'll be reviewing our strategic plan, and probably we'll need to recast our vision going forward. So it's a widely recognized and appreciated professional social work association contributing to improved livelihoods of the Zambian society. And our mission is a professional body that exists to improve and promote the quality of life of all people of Zambia through regulation of training and practice of social work and associated fields. So we are registered in Zambia in accordance with the Registrar of Societies Act, Cap 119 of the laws of Zambia. And also we are a member of the International Federation of Social Workers. So in terms of networking, networking is about, establishing and developing long-term relationships or relations. So whether you meet at a sports league or attending a conference such as this one, maybe at the airport or at the, on a queue for COVID test or whatever in the market, you can make a lifetime connection. So what we're looking at is to be able to connect and identify, potential networks or potential partners, and that we got to take a deliberate step as national associations. So there are always networking opportunities all around. So as I said, we got to be intentional about creating networks and sustaining them. So it's all about relationship building. So networking is not just about receiving or asking. The best way to connect is by giving. So we got to give ourselves as a national associations in terms of our expertise. We need to demonstrate that we can add value to anything that is happening at national level and also in our networks. So networking allows you access to opportunities you might not be able to find on your own, and then your network has potential to provide you with insights. So insights include, for instance, if you identify a partner or a network, say in the name of any UN agency, you may have individual, contacts there, and those who should be able to give you insights of what's happening within the agency, and which, of course, you could build on to kind of propose any future partnerships as a national association. So your network has potential to provide you with insights. Networking is about forming trust and helping one another towards goals. So it's all about relationship building as well as sustaining the relationship. So regularly engaging with your contacts and finding opportunities to assist them help to strengthen the relationship. So we got to keep oiling the relationships that we cultivate. That is very important in networking. So I should give you, some of the networks that we've been, or the partnerships that as an association in Zambia have had over the years. I think one example I can give is that the partnership that we have with UNICEF Zambia. And it all started in 2017 when Zambia hosted a conference such as this one. And there was some, collaboration that we had with the UNICEF, and they provided support, for us to have a successful conference. And that's where it all started from. Then after the conference in 2017, we kept on the connection with UNICEF, and we kept on talking. Remember, I indicated that we need to sustain the network. We need to sustain the partnership through continuous connection, continuous talking, and continuous engagement. And then in 2018, we went into a partnership with UNICEF, where as an association, we were engaged to provide support to the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services under a project called SIVCA, which was Service Efficiency and Effectiveness for Vulnerable Children and Adolescents. So it was a USAID funded project. And under that project, as an association, we recruited about 20 staff, the majority being social workers. And the 15 social workers that we recruited, called social welfare facilitators, were seconded in the 15 districts under the Department of Social Welfare. And that was in the spirit of strengthening the social welfare workforce within the ministry, as well as supporting the districts to roll out in terms of the implementation of case management for vulnerable children and adolescents. So that project was running for about 2 years. And when that project ended in April 2020, there was kind of a drought in terms of projects that we were implementing as a national association. So, but our core business as a national association is things that I talked about as I started my presentation. But we realized that in terms of membership, people make contributions towards membership, which is not substantive to sustain a national association. So as a national association, we had to be strategic in terms of doing other projects or implementing other projects or entering into networks and partnerships to be able to raise resources to sustain ourselves as a national association. So I just want to encourage us that we got not to be walking straight, but we need to look around and see what other networks and partnerships we enter into to be able to sustain our national associations, of course, using the skills and knowledge that we have as social workers. Currently, we are in partnership with PACT Zambia, that's an international organization, and on a project called Achieve, which is a USAID funded project. It's a 5 years USAID funded project. And under that project, we have recruited 10 social workers whom we've placed in 10 districts. Again, they've been embedded under the Department of Social Welfare, and they are providing support at district level in terms of enhancing the coordination for social services that are due to vulnerable children, adolescents, and their families. And I think that is working well, and also it is helping even in increasing our capacity as a national association. And also, of course, demonstrating the value that we give to the country as a national association. I should mention also that, once in a while, or often at times, we get a request, for instance, to input or comment as a professional body on key national issues. I remember the other time we got a request from the National Assembly to give our opinion on the juvenile justice system in Zambia, the effectiveness of the juvenile justice system in Zambia. So we came up with a paper, and we also went and appeared before a parliamentary committee where we presented the social work view or perspective, professional perspective on the effectiveness of the juvenile justice system. So for me, I think I'm just trying to highlight all these things that they help to put the professional body in the limelight, and that stakeholders, including government, already start seeing the value of the professional body. So I think that is very important when we want to sustain our networks. I should mention also sometime in 2014, we were a recipient of a capacity building support from another USAID funded project, which was called Zambia Rising Project. And that really helped us to take off as a national association, because before then, we never even had an office of our own. It was a briefcase kind of a professional association. But now I think we are grounded. We have an office. We've got staff working in the office, and we've also partnered with the American International Health Alliance previously. Currently, we have a memorandum of understanding with the University of Zambia to provide short courses as part of continuous professional development for our members. We are also a member of CROP, which is it's brief for Consortium for Rights of Other Persons. Again, it's an issue where you got to get out there, engage, network, partner, and then people will see you, there'll be visibility, and they'll see value in you as a professional body. Then we're also a member of the Guiding Coalition on Strengthening the Social Welfare Workforce, which is led by the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. And then we also part on quite a number of technical working groups within government, like the Alternative Care Technical Working Group, as well as what was previously called the Social Protection Sector Advisory Group. So again, we take steps, we make efforts to engage. And during the 2017 conference, we did not look only at engaging, like the UN or the NGOs to partner with us in the conference. We also went out to engage like the private companies like Lafarge Cement, who came in to the conference and provided conference packs. And the deal that we had with them was that we help advertise their brand during the conference. And for me, again, I want to encourage national associations, even when you are hosting your own events, try to engage the private sector, let them come on board. And of course, it's a give and take. So they would want to find out what is in there for them. But then at the end of the day, they come on board, they recognize you, and also you also, meet what their needs would be. Could be in advertising, as well as raising their profile. So we've partnered with Frederick Ebert Stiftang. I think that was during the conference. And again, after the conference, we made it a point that we needed to sustain that relationship. We are a member of the Southern Africa Social Protection Experts Network. Again, all these are things that we need to look out for as national associations, so as to be able to engage and demonstrate our relevance. In terms of organization capacity building blocks and checklists, I would summarize, like, of course, the National Association needs to have its own constitution. That is very important. You got to have the vision, mission, and you can package them in different ways. Could be in a brochure, it could be you stick it on your wall in the office and stuff like that. Then, of course, you got to have a defined membership in terms of membership categories. You got to develop your own code of ethics. It is actually a requirement for a national association that wants to affiliate or be a member of IFSW, that you got to have the local professional code of ethics for your. Then you got to develop what we call the board charter, of course, for your executive. That's very important in governance. Put in place the board, very important. In other places, they call it executive committee. You got to register locally according to applicable laws in your country, very important. Then develop a structure for membership fees. So depending on how you've classified your membership or defined your membership, you got to come up with a structure for membership fees. Then you got to raise awareness, targeting, of course, social work training institutions, organizations providing social work related services, as well as members of the public, meaning that you got to dramatize yourselves as a national association to create visibility. Then very important also to have a strategic plan in place, and that will help us or help you or the organization to project where it wants to see itself in a few years. So that is very key. Then in our case, we also have a business plan that we developed, as well as a resource mobilization strategy, which helps us in terms of looking around for resources, because you cannot sustain an office or a structure without resources. So Mayaka, I don't know who is changing the slides. If we go to the next slide, please. So yeah, so that is, we call it a green book. That's our code of ethics. And again, we got to be organized. In networking and partnerships, the point is that people want to be with those that look like them. I don't know whether you're getting my point. So meaning that we got to be organized. If you're not organized, people would not want to associate with you. So you need to ensure that everything is properly documented and is looking beautiful in the eyes of potential partners. The other issue is about policies that we got to invest our time developing as national associations. In our case, we've developed quite a number of policies, one of which is financial policy. We call it financial manual. That is very important because a partner will not give you resources if you do not have such policies in place, because they want to know and understand how the finances that they will give you or share will be utilized. And the policy will define, for instance, how the funds will be accounted for. Procurement policy, very important. Human resource policy, very important. And then we are, social workers, we deal with people on a daily basis. We deal with children on a daily basis. We got to have other policies such as child safeguarding policy. Of course, when you're talking about procurement or employing staff, we need to have policies such as conflict of interest. Then there is the policy that we are just working on as a national association, which is prevention of sexual exploitation and abuse. That's a policy that we want to have as a national association. Then we got to develop a clear organization structure in terms of, in case a partner comes, they want to understand how we are structured. Because to ensure that we hold regular board meetings and all board reports to be minuted, very important. And then if I told you that before 2014, we did not have an office. We're kind of a briefcase national association. But since 2014, we established an office. We started with one room, which was paid for by a project which was supporting us. But from 2017 to date, we are renting quite a big office. I'll show you some pictures. And we are paying on our own from the resources that we are able to mobilize. And so those, if you go to the next slide, please. So that's the picture of our office, the inside. I didn't want to show you the outside. So the first picture that you see on the left top, that's our reception. And the next picture is in the middle is that's our boardroom. Then the one at the far end, that's our pool office. And then of course you see where we have all those things stuck there. That's our storeroom. And it's so I know that quite a number of national associations within the region are struggling, but I think we can learn from each other, exchange notes, and also believe that networking is key and that it can take us to some higher level. So in terms of, again, how we've been able to do some of these things, because we've not grown like just there and then, it's been a process. And deliberately, we've been doing what we're calling organization capacity assessment, which is basically a self-reflection of how we are growing as a national association. So there is a tool, which is in Excel, which we use for assessing ourselves. And it has different domains that we define for ourselves that we want to assess ourselves against. So I don't know whether Mayaka, you can just open that so that I quickly go through, and we can talk even after this and we can share. And we had agreed actually with the last time that we had a meeting with the presidents from different national associations, that using my other cap as a regional representative, we can provide that support, because we believe also as IFSW that IFSW can only be as strong as the national associations. So if national associations are not strong, then it means even IFSW is weak, because it's made up of national associations. So we got to invest in building national associations for them to thrive. So if you can go to the second tab, yeah, and take it up. Okay, so you see that it's just that I've not just opened it here. Let me see if I can. So you see that that is a tool that we use. This is, yeah, this is the tool that we use to assess ourselves. And when you look at the first domain focuses on, governance. And there's a way that we score ourselves. So the first, I mean, the other column that should be, is it the fourth column, which has 0? Just go up, please. Yeah, which has 0. Yeah. So that one which has 0 talks about no vision and no values and all that. Then there's a second. So it's like each step as you are increasing going forward, it gives you like this an improvement. So you do a self-assessment and score yourself against each one of those. And then there are formulas at the end there as you are scoring, it calculates. And if you can go down at the bottom, so there are different domains. There's resource mobilization, there's financial, whatever. And then those are summarized there. If you see, those are the same domains that networking, coordination, resource mobilization, HR. And as you are scoring up there, you see that here there are some, if you can go to the right, far right, the same. So as you're scoring, you find that the colors there, like robots, will start changing depending on how well you are doing. And the green is the best, red is not so good. And then it will give you the percentage there. So this was our assessment in 2017. And it was indicating to us that from the last time we did an assessment, we had grown to 55.9%. And the previous year that we did an assessment, because this was 2017 assessment, the other one was 2016. In 2016, we were at 32%. So you see that you are able to see yourself like growing. And then as we conducting this organization capacity assessment, we also find areas where we need improvement. Then at the end of the assessment, we come up with what we call an improvement plan in terms of, okay, these areas we haven't done so well, so what should we do going forward? Then the next time that we do an assessment, we'll focus so much on those areas to see whether we have improved or not. I think that is also very important if you want to grow your national association. And of course, partners would also want to come and look at all these things. When, say, USID or UNICEF come around and want to see how you're doing as a national association and go work with them, this process of self-reflection, they get the confidence that, okay, yes, we have a partner that we can bank on. We have a partner that, we can invest in. So I thought I needed to share that. And in case you would want to adopt the same process, I think that would be important. So if you can just close that and get back to the presentation as I conclude. So I talked about the organization capacity assessment. We got also to do conduct a scoping exercise of potential networks or partners. So we do need to scan around within our environment and see the like-minded agencies or organizations that we can network or partner with, and also identify strategic government departments or ministries that we can engage with, and also national committees that we can contribute to as a national association. I think that is very important. And there are also key elements that, of course, we'll talk about, issues to do with making connections and also being deliberate in engaging. Then offering support and friendship in a network, very critical. Then developing mutual respect. One key thing that I thought I needed to highlight is number 11, where we need to honor promises or commitments. Even when you have a meeting with your partner, it's important to be on time, you know, and if you commit to a partner, it's important to honor that particular commitment. And as I conclude, I also needed to highlight a few things that we got to be deliberate about networking. It is also about relationship building and sustaining the networks. It's not enough to just build that partnership, but we got to find ways of sustaining the partnership. We also ensure that we develop mutual respect within the network. We got to invest, as I said, in the organization capacity development and be deliberate, of course, to administer even the organization capacity assessment, which will be informing us in terms of how we are doing as a national association. Then develop sound governance system. So again, we normally talk about this with instance about the founder syndrome. So if I'm a founder of a national association, I need to be able to share the vision with others so that it doesn't all end up with me, but it should be a shared vision. And then develop, okay, we've talked about that. Then develop organization policies. I think that is important. So it takes a bit of effort to create networks and sustain a partnership. It may not happen on its own. So we got to be deliberate. I thank you so much. I end here.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It's so important to learn what associations are doing and the kind of the sharing of learning. So that was really great. Thank you. I'm now going to call Emmanuel from the Rwandan National Organization of Social Workers to kind of further the learning and sharing of associations across the African region. Thank you.
Good morning once again. I'm Dr. Emmanuel Kizimana. I'm the current president of Rwanda National Organization of Social Workers ad interim. We are going to share with you the genesis of social work education in Rwanda and the challenges in the social work practice that we need together to look how to find solutions to those challenges and keep forward and develop our profession. Social work in Rwanda, social work education in Rwanda cannot be talked about without talking about the history of education in Rwanda. As far as Ubuntu is concerned, social work education started in the ancient times with the traditional school, which was held through Itorero. Itorero was a traditional school where adolescents, young people used to learn humanism. And humanism is the values of humanism are respect, are cooperation, solidarity. And all those values were taught within Itorero by our grandfathers and mothers. Itorero did not focus on just humanism, but also on patriotism. And the graduates of Itorero, mainly young boys, were sent to Urugerero and became National Army Band. They were King's soldiers, and they were concerned with the national security and controlled the boundaries of the nation, and they were also involved in Rwandan expansion. Because many years ago, Rwanda was not as big as it is now, thanks to those young boys who contributed to its expansion. Later on, with the arrival of Western people, the traditional school was shortly replaced by Western education. That is 1924. And later in 1957, the first formal school was opened in the Gisagara district. And that was École Notre-Dame de la Providence in 1957, but in 1959, it was relocated where it is now in Huye district. École Notre-Dame de la Providence used to train young social work assistants. They were called assistants sociaux. They learned how to carry out all the social work profession we know now. In 1999, social worker higher education opened in National University of Rwanda, the current University of Rwanda. And that is in Huye campus. And some of those who started with that option of social work are here, and they are lecturers. They are training new social workers. In 2006, an option of social work also opened in the former Institut Polytechnique de Byumba, and that is the current University of Technology and the Arts of Byumba. Thanks to Alexandre Generez and others who contributed the lot in the genesis of that option in the University of Technology and the Arts of Byumba, and they are here. In 2005, a group of students who were studying at the university, at the National University, led by lecturer, went to Tanzania to attend a conference organized by IFSW in 2005. At that time, they announced the formation or the beginning of Rwanda Social Work Association, Rwandan Association of Social Workers. It started informally, but progressively joined by graduates, practitioners, and the other friends of social work, got a local authorization by the district. It was the local authorization was offered by Huye district. Huye district because National Association of Social Workers at that time was composed mainly by lecturers of the University of Rwanda and students and the surrounding graduates who are practitioners in the local NGOs in that district. Few people from other districts joined the association. And as it was growing up, we gained the entire country. And in 2017, a provisional authorization at national level was offered. In that year, I can say that Rwanda National Organization of Social Workers was formally recognized countrywide. In 2020, we got a definitive authorization. I request you to give a big clap to individuals here present who contributed to that development of social work in Rwanda. Nowadays, we have many graduates on the ground. We count almost 3,000 graduates. And we count also 200 graduates every year. Since 2010, where all the universities teaching or providing social work Catholic University of Rwanda, University of Technology and the Arts of Yumba, and I can't not forget Mount Kenya University. They offer to the market labor 200 graduates every year. And those graduates are mainly involved or employed by government in different structures and mainly in local government. And when we start with cell level, we find social workers who are employed there, and they live, communicate, interact, and they contribute to the family's promotion. They are also employed in non-governmental organizations that are concentrated in rural areas, and mainly in rural areas. Every time I talk to, when I'm interacting with my student, I tell them that social work, the field of social work is not in town. It is not in the cities. It is where vulnerable people live, and that is rural areas. Social workers are not trained at BSW to go and sit in the offices only, but meet the population, help the population to face their challenges, show them some mechanisms, some strategies to overcome their daily life problems. Social work is a field-based profession. But we face many challenges in relation to practical training of our students, internships. That is why I call upon my colleague. Please give the mic to lecturer Genez. Genez is going to support me and share with you about challenges of social work practice.
Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. We are teaching in social work, meaning that we train social workers who will go on field to support different categories of client. Books are there to document our lectures, but also to enable our students to get more knowledge, theories from published books that are being published every year. However, when it comes time to go on field for industrial attachment, some students have some challenges, especially because in private universities where students are fully self-sponsored. The first challenge I would like to talk about is related to lack of enough support by field supervisors where our students carry out their industrial attachment. Sometimes field supervisors, they have a lot of duties. They are overloaded, and as they are required to handle the different duties simultaneously, they don't have enough time to support our students in their practices. This is also related to another issue where they deny access to some activities because they don't trust fully our students in terms of confidentiality or in some activities. So access denial for some activities is another barrier to acquire all practical experiences to our students. We have remarked also that in some social work settings, those people who are supposed to supervise them, to initiate them, to advise them, are not social workers. So lack of qualified field supervisors in the field of social work is another challenge for student attachment. As I said at the beginning, our students in private universities are self-sponsored. This shortage of funds, lack of enough economic means, financial means, they push them to choose industrial attachment places that are near their homes to mitigate the cost, the high cost of industrial attachment. This is a problem because sometimes they don't choose, they have a right to choose themselves the industrial attachment site, and they can, as they are free to choose the industrial attachment site, they can choose institutions that are near their homes, but that are not really a good place to acquire enough practical knowledge. Again, some are that some sites that are near their homes. Another problem is that some are employed. Some of our students are employees in different organizations. And the duration of industrial attachment is greater than their annual leave, because they are supposed to carry out industrial attachment activities during their annual leave. But they have only 1 month for annual leave, while the duration of industrial attachment is at least 6 weeks, meaning that they will finish their annual leave before the end of industrial attachment. This is a problem. That's why some students choose to perform the industrial attachment within the institutions in which they work every day. For such cases, we advise them to change at least the service. If they are working, for example, with the vulnerable children, they can shift from that service to another service like family planning, like child development activities, so that they can gain other experiences in other area of social work practice. So in short, I can say that this is the major challenges, but I cannot ignore challenges related to field, to academic supervision that is done once, while it should be done at least twice a month to make sure that if students are really learning something new from other professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Generous, for the compliment. Supervising internship is not at an adequate level, because, and mainly in private universities, because private universities are not delivering enough resources to supervision. And that makes students concentrate in the surrounding environment and the institutions and the organization. And they can't afford to go far from their universities, where they can find social work related organizations, social work related activities. They just go in the proximity of the institution so that universities do not spend more money. It is a challenge. It is a challenge. It is a challenge for the training of social work. Social workers are not theoretical professionals, they are practical professionals. They have to apply the knowledge acquired. And that requires enough training, enough practical training, enough experience from the field. But if they don't get that opportunity, it will become a challenge when they graduate. Another challenge is the linkage between the organization, the social work organization, and universities. Apart from the organization of these conferences and the other issues, the organization is an area where we have to improve. Does not cooperative universities in the education of students. And that is a challenge for future social workers. Another challenge is the number of the G-study members. As I told you, we have on the ground almost 3,000 practitioners who graduated from social work education. But we do have a very few number of registered social workers, which means that we miss their input. We miss their input. We miss their experience. Because when they come to the association, to the organization, they would have a chance to talk and share with the students' associations. That is why I take this opportunity to call upon you students, when you graduate, please join their organization. You are members of the organization right now, but as a student, we want you also as practitioners. We work better when you work together. Thank you.
Thank you for that great presentation. And we're going to be continuing learning from professional associations across the African region. Now from the Zimbabwe National Association of Social Workers, we'll be talking about supporting continuous professional development among social workers. So yeah, if the Zimbabwe Association representative could please come on. So we're just waiting for the Zimbabwe Association representative to come on. Mayak, I'm not sure if you can help us reach them.
Sure. I think we can have one question as we, she's just saying that she has a technical issue, but in 3 or 5 minutes she'll be on.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for that. So would anyone like to ask a question for Emmanuel? We've got one question at the front.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel. My name is David, as usual. Mine was, I had a suggestion. It was a request from the previous speaker, who is the presenter, who is the vice president of IFSW African region. He shared something of a great importance. So I would like to request if there is a way how you can share that presentation virtually, or if you have it somewhere where we can print and make it hard. I would like to have it. That's my request. Then back to Dr. Emmanuel. One of my mentor, who's my HOD, Generous, they talked about the issues faced by social workers, and they talked about such kind of problems where we don't have fields of practice. And I had a suggestion about that. If we really have, as African countries, we have associations, I would suggest, if it's possible, we can create a virtual platform. We shall be sharing opportunities in different countries, because actually there are limitations financially, but actually this does not stop other opportunities to get provided by us, other associations, because I might fail here in Rwanda, but the Association of Zambia, Zimbabwe might facilitate. Then I do my internship from that area. So another one, I would also like to request those practitioners that left the institutions and went to practice on the ground, they'd have this spirit, I and my institution. You need to come back to the institution where you graduated from. Then you share experience, you share ideas with the students doing such a course. This would inspire them and motivate them. You would even share experiences and whatever. Then you would even share opportunities in the institution maybe you are working for. So that's all I think about. If they are all possible, you can do it, and it will be grateful for us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Could we go to Dr. Manuel first, and then maybe Joachim, you could answer as well?
I think it's not a question, it's just a comment or an addition to what we presented. Really, what he said is good. We need to partner with other associations, and I think that is one of the aims of these kind of conferences, because you can't work like an island. We have to work together. We have to connect. Remember, in the youth sessions, we requested them to connect with their colleagues. Yesterday, there was a good cooperation between Burundians and the RDC. It was a wonderful example. We have to connect and see around us how to cooperate and promote and develop our profession. Coming to what David started with, social work has different fields in Rwanda. And I think you saw the last slide of my presentation. Can you please show the last slide of my presentation? Last slide of my presentation. I tried to spare out some areas of field education, but of field education for social workers. Social workers, there are many areas of practice for social workers. Education is the first, because without education, nothing can happen. Education, but we are involved in human rights. That is our area of practice. Community development. You learn many courses in relation to community development. Health institutions, social, and luckily, these days, our government took a decision to employ social workers in social services at the hospital, in hospital institutions. Nowadays, you can't be employed in social service unity at the hospital without graduating from social work. Those who had occupied our positions are required to come and complete and graduate from social work field, social work education. We are involved in mental health. I have many social workers in the psychiatric hospitals here in Rwanda. Areas of equality, gender, child protection, that is our areas of practice. So you can't miss where you can request internships and get some professional experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayaka, please do interrupt and let us know if the Zimbabwe Association is ready. But if not, we'll take a response from Joachim and then maybe another question from the back as well.
Yeah, there was a request for the presentation, and I just want to assure you that all the presentations I think will be made available, those that have been made during this conference. And also just to make mention that we have a WhatsApp group. It's called Africa Social Workers. But again, WhatsApp can only take on a few members, but so we need to find another way of widening the participation on the WhatsApp group. Then, of course, it's important, yes, to partner with different associations as demonstrated by Burundi and DRC. So we got to, of course, start the conversations even whilst we are here and see how we can foster such partnerships. Very important. And I also wanted to encourage ourselves that like what we have in Zambia, we have a social work students association in training institutions. So where they have their own structures. And I think that is also a good thing in terms of starting to build new social workers, as it were, to be able to assume some responsibilities and also getting oriented to the profession. Thank you.
Thank you for that response.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think we are going to have the Zimbabwean presentation, and after I've seen Mgumbate has been raising the hand for some time. So Mgumbate, within a minute, you could add your comment, and then we usher in the Zimbabwean Association. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So I really appreciate the strategies being used in Rwanda and other countries to improve social work training in Africa. I wanted to make a comment about fieldwork placements. Traditionally, that has been a challenge, even in Zimbabwe, finding adequate fieldwork placement. The big challenge in Africa is that we've got social work that is oriented towards individuals, working with individuals and families, and working in organizations, whereas most of the challenges that we have are in the community. And you find that in those communities, fieldwork placement opportunities are not there. So there are models that have been used elsewhere that I think would be very useful in Africa. In India, they've got what they call the rural camp, or the open community placement. That's a placement that students do in communities. So we haven't explored that much in Africa, but it's really a good opportunity, especially when we think about developmental social work. Developmental social work will work best if we are engaged in communities and if we provide the students with opportunities to be placed in those communities. It has to be innovative, it has to be creative, because it's an area that has not been explored, but it also then allows students to be innovative and creative within those communities. And I think that's what we want, engaging with communities more, and universities creating those creative opportunities for universities to go into communities and do placement, even though there are no organizations that are there. And there's literature around that, especially India. There is a very good model, and it's something that we need to be thinking about. So thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Lynn.
Yes, hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead, we are listening to you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. I wasn't able to hear. I didn't have audio. Thank you very much to the organizers of this conference, and also thank you to all who are attending in physical and also online. My name is Linaro Paranganda, and I am the current president of the National Association of Social Workers. I am going to touch on a discussion that hovers around promotion of continuous professional development amongst social work practitioners, drawing lessons from Zimbabwe.
Hello, we are not hearing you. Please, can you unmute, please? Can you unmute?
Okay, thank you. So maybe to start off, I would want to take you through the value and importance of continuous professional development trainings in social work or within the social work fraternity. So you will realize that the current environment that we are living in has continued to be exposed to numerous socio-economic and political shocks and hazards, require social workers to possess new skills for them to remain relevant and competent as they continue to offer social work services to various clients. So continuous professional development training therefore becomes a necessity and also a need to ensure that there is, it comes in as a way of covering for gap in acquisition of knowledge between the period when social workers leave school and also when they start to train. You will all agree with me that in terms of acquisition of knowledge, we go through maybe a 4-year degree program, and after that, that's all the exposure that we have. But taking into account what is now happening, it therefore becomes a necessity. And these continuous professional development trainings may therefore take the form of short courses or long courses of various lengths, depending on the requirements of a particular regulatory authority or particular regulatory authorities in the field of higher and tertiary education within specified countries. And also these trainings will therefore need to reflect the demands and requirements of professional bodies that are responsible for registering social workers within respective areas or communities of practice, such that it can end up earning them CPD points or continuous professional development points, which may also be necessary for renewal of practice. However, the current environment to which continuous professional development trainings are offered continue to face numerous challenges, and from a practitioner's perspective, you will realize that practitioners continue to face financial constraints to meet the cost of continuous professional development trainings. They also continue to find themselves in a dilemma where they have to be balancing work life and also study, including parenthood, especially for women. And some organizations continue to come with non-flexibility in terms of application for leave, in particular study leave, which also makes it difficult for social workers to then be continuously exposed to or join continuous professional development trainings that will be taking place. In other scenarios, it also resonates again around issues of lack of proper policies or lack of supportive policy environments that then seek to support continuous professional development learning for social workers. However, there are also opportunities that have started to arise here and there. For instance, the continued recognition of the use of online platforms for training, which may then cater for lack of flexibility by some organizations in providing time off for their employees to go and work. and also the increases in number of social work training institutions across Africa, which then affords social work practitioners the opportunity to choose from a wide range of institutions, the type of training that they may want to go through, the period, and also the form that they may want to go through this training from time to time. There has also been some interest by some stakeholders in wanting to finance continuous professional development trainings for social service workers, who include UNICEF, and also in Zimbabwe, we recently saw Southern African Trust SAT as one of the organizations also raising some interest in financing continuous professional development trainings. We have also witnessed continued deterioration in mental health, issues in mental health, state of the youths, a rise in drug abuse. So basically, in brief, we are saying an increase in social ills, which also then becomes a good opportunity for social workers to justify the need for continuous professional development. So for Zimbabwe, we have not been spared by the various problems that I have already touched on, which include COVID-19, drought, floods, and also just the failure of our economy to perform positively. So we have a lot of economic challenges, and people continue to face various problems, which includes domestic violence. I've already talked about youth unemployment. So you will realize that economic deterioration in Zimbabwe has also resulted in increased numbers of children who are left unattended for longer periods of time as parents go to neighboring countries to migrate for short-term or for long-term in search of employment. Children have also been exposed to psychological stress and trauma as they have to learn from home as a result of COVID-19. The drought has not made it also easier and COVID-19 for the youths. We have witnessed an increase in number of teenage pregnancies and also a rise in drug abuse. Currently, in Zimbabwe, continuous professional development trainings are organized within the frameworks of requirements by various regulatory bodies, who include the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education is chaired by a body known as ZimChair, and also the Council of Social Workers, who have got some certain set down requirements for trainings for social workers, and also the Social Workers Act. The National Association of Social Workers, therefore, in 2021, partnered with both the civic society, government, academic institutions in coming up with trainings for continuous professional development for social workers, both using the physical platform and also the online platform. Yes, next slide. And these trainings that we've introduced and has since started to take off include trainings in sign language. And sign language has come in as a need and also a necessity for social workers, following the realization that there is a gap in current social work training curricula at tertiary level, where there is no specific training to meet some of the disability requirements of our clients who live with disabilities. In particular, issues to do with sign language, where social workers in most cases then end up having to rely on outsourcing for professional interpreters. And this in itself comes with its own limitations and challenges, hence the introduction of that sign language training. And to date, we have trained, we started in June, we have trained around over 60 social workers in Zimbabwe. We have also, in this sign language training, we are doing it in partnership with Deaf Zimbabwe Trust, a non-governmental organization. We have also partnered with Connect, an institute of systematic counsel that offers systemic counseling in developing a new continuous professional development training course in the area of systemic counseling and mental health as a way of trying to equip social workers with the relevant skills to enable them to intervene in that area, considering that it has also become key and critical. We have also recently partnered with the Institute of Women Social Workers Zimbabwe and Southern Africa Trust in also offering some one-day short-term course for social workers who are already into practice around issues of values and ethics in the workplace. And this week, starting from Monday to today, Friday, we have seen at least not less than social workers trained every day in Harare in this area. However, while we have made some successes and hope that we will continue to make successes in partnering with government and also civic society and other accredited training institutions in offering continuous professional development trainings, there remains some limitations to social work practitioners in terms of financing social work trainings for continuous professional development at both individual and institutional level. So these are the challenges that we continue to face, and we call upon the civic society, the government to find ways to subsidize and also fund the cause for the need for social workers to continuously be trained as a way of upgrading their skills. This gives a close to my presentation. I want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much for that presentation from the Zimbabwean Association of Social Workers. Would anyone like to ask a question for our speaker?
Hello?
Yes, hello, I can. Yes.
Yeah. I'm the current president of Rwanda National Organization of Social Workers, and when I present, they share the problem of membership. We have a problem of graduates joining back the associations, the organization. How is in Zimbabwe? Do you face such problem, or what do you do to attract graduates to join the association?
So yes, indeed, Zimbabwe also continues to face the problem of membership. But what we have done at the moment is to try and then bring up or come up with various innovations to make joining more attractive. Hence, we now have all these other programs which at times are financed by the training programs, which are also financed by, at times by non-governmental organizations. So members now see the value of joining, and slowly our numbers have started to peak, and there is a lot of interest. We have also started to expand beyond Zimbabwe in terms of membership, and we are currently in the process of establishing a branch in Australia, and this is how we think we are also going to continue to tap into expanding membership. So at the moment, this is what we have been doing. Thank you.
Another sub question, because it is related to the previous question. How do you involve social work student associations in the National Organization of Social Workers in Zimbabwe?
So students have got, they can join through student membership, and they've got separate chapters. So we are in the process. So far, we have managed to successfully enter into a partnership with one of the institutions, academic institutions in Zimbabwe, University of Zimbabwe, and we are still in talks with other institutions where we then establish students' social work unions within a particular academic institution, and we are also offering them various programs like mentorship, in terms of how to apply for a job, and also how to develop a CV, some guest lectures, and also some exchange visits with other universities. Previously, before COVID-19, they would also be involved in social sporting games such as soccer and netballs, and these are some of the activities that would also keep them excited. They also have their own structures in terms of leadership, so that way they mobilize each other to participate. Actually, this year, some students have already self-organized from the Midland State University and approached us amid our finalization of discussion on MOU with partnership with the university, and they have come up with a social responsibility program, initiated social responsibility program, where we are going to paint a children's waiting area, interview waiting area in one of the organizations that does child protection work in Zimbabwe, and they've already self-mobilized funds, and we said to them, you bring 50% equivalent of what you have brought, we are also going to give in 50%. So that project is going to see us both in partnership, students who are members, and also NASWA as an institution in pushing through that social corporate responsibility program.
Thank you so much for your great presentation and those responses to the question. We're now going to move on to an invited speaker who will talk for the next 20 minutes or so, Professor Paul Bukuluki. Please do come on to the Zoom.
I'm Charles from Huye, and I would like to ask a question. I thank first of all, the presenter. Hello?
Sorry, we won't have time for a question, unfortunately, but we will move to the next speaker, Professor Paul Bukuluki.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayak, is the professor ready to present?
Yes, I can see he is in the link or in the network. I'm not sure what will be the challenge, but he is present here.
Okay, thank you. Oh, is he muted? You might need to unmute your mic, Professor. I think we can see you now, Professor.
Hello.
Professor, could you try moving your camera a bit down because we can only see the top of your head at the moment. There we go. We can see you now and we can hear you as well. Yeah, please start your presentation.
Thank you very much, everyone. It is wonderful to address this assembly of social workers and the stakeholders who very much have the interest of promoting social work and social work education, given our central role. I just want to again re-emphasize what my former colleagues have spoken about Ubuntu in the context of social work, but also to re-emphasize how then that is aligned with the whole notion around the indigenization of social work and the decolonization of social work, but relating that to the whole concept of Ubuntu. So we know very well that social work has a number of core values we subscribe to, but also Ubuntu has certain values that it subscribes to, which a previous presenter, I can't recall the name right now, who is our celebrated scholar on Ubuntu here on the African continent, really alluded to the values of justice, the values of self-worth, the values of collectivism and collective responsibility, which all are very important in the context of social work. The values of saying, I am because you are, the values of which means actually human dignity, recognizing the humanness. This is very important, but it is surprising that it took us a while actually to come out broadly to show that there are cultural resources within our culture, on the African continent, within our culture, that actually support the values of social work. And I think I'm extremely excited by the fact that this realization is growing, that there are cultural resources embedded in our social norms and values that, that have a lot to contribute to social work, if well understood, well documented, and well thought through. The mere fact that this conference has prioritized the issue of Ubuntu and social work is extremely important, and I feel excited about this. Now, we definitely have positive cultural resources embedded within Ubuntu, including justice, your humanness is my humanness, meaning dignity. But we also have to understand that still within Ubuntu and within our culture, there are social norms that are an antithesis of social work. So we need to be self-critical to say, yes, these are the positive social norms. And when I talk about social norms, I'm meaning the informal rules that regulate our behavior, the informal rules that are approved, that refer to approved or inappropriate behavior, and the informal rules are about what is typically acceptable to do. Some of these are really resources for social work, but we also know that some of these are an antithesis for the values of social work. Because, for example, if you are in a collectivistic society or community, and your voice is suppressed in the interest of the community, where so in other words, within the context of the Ubuntu, how do you negotiate the self as an individual in relation to the community? So they are the communal values, but we are also an individual that needs a voice, that also has rights, and sometimes your opinion might be different from that of the social norms that are prevailing, or sometimes those social norms that we cherish very much might be at variance with a number of human rights values and principles that we ascribe to in social work. So that negotiation between the human rights and some of the social norms inherent within Ubuntu is very important in the process of decoloniality and indigenization of social work. So for me, paying attention to that in our teaching, in our research is very important. That negotiation between social norms and inherent within Ubuntu and the social worker values, including, of course, human rights, because human rights are very important to social work. And then asking ourselves and training our students on what is that process of adaptation that you go through, that process of negotiation between the universal, what is becoming like the universal values inherent within the human social work and human rights, and how do those play out in the different contexts in which our students and ourselves pursue our scholarship. So paying attention to that is extremely important. So in other words, this brings in the issue of how do we, of cultural relativism, because again, even when we talk of Africa, Africa is not just one block or one thing. Africa is heterogeneous in very many ways. Even when we talk of Ubuntu, Ubuntu is not one thing. Ubuntu is also, yes, it shares certain common aspects, but it is also heterogeneous in very many ways. So the negotiation between cultural relativism inherent within the Ubuntu and how it is understood, lived, and practiced in different contexts, and the social worker values is important. So if I'm implementing social work in Europe, and I'm implementing social work in Africa, I should be able to do that adaptation. But as I do that adaptation, I should not compromise the key principles and values of social worker practice, because those are like the engine. Those are like at the very core of what we do. So enabling our students and us as faculty and researchers and academics to engage with that issue of the negotiation between cultural relativism and the universal values that we ascribe to as social workers is extremely important. And this fits in very well with the debate of Ubuntu. So how do we deal with the Ubuntu? Make use of its resources, cultural resources embedded within it, the positive elements that are embedded within it, but also be very critical on those elements that are within what you would call Ubuntu, but could be and lived differently, understood differently in different cultural contexts, but that could be at variance actually with the social worker values. So that being critical and reflective, I think to me is extremely important. And this is the time to do this, because there is a very good current now on indigenization of social worker practice. So since Ubuntu is one of those very important very important perspectives and philosophies. Sometimes I prefer to call actually Ubuntu philosophy and philosophies. We must make sure that as we do indigenization and decoloniality of social work, as we take social work into our hands, but also taking it into our hands with a lot of responsibility to make sure that we don't lose the nucleus and the core values of social work, even as we do adaptation to our various contexts that basically play out within the Ubuntu philosophy. So for me, that is very important, not only in terms of teaching, not only in terms of informing our curriculum, but also in terms of the research we do and the research agenda for social work. How does the research agenda of social work and the indigenization of social work take into account the Ubuntu in terms of researching about its contribution and alignment to social worker values and principles, but also in terms of how we can transform those aspects within our social norms that inform Ubuntu, but that are at variance with those values. What is that process like? So creating that self-reflection, for me, I think is the point that I would like to underscore a lot. If we are doing Ubuntu, for example, increasing the social workers, we are engaged in aspects of mediation. So if there is a mediation, if we are in processes of transitional justice, and we are relying on Ubuntu, like the way it was used as a very strong instrument in South Africa, how do we make sure that as we apply that Ubuntu, we are making sure that we align it with the values and the principles of social worker practice? And we are making sure that within that Ubuntu, we are holding the perpetrators accountable, even within that context of Ubuntu. So how do we make Ubuntu more accountable to ensure that the human rights of the victims, but also the rights of perpetrators are not taken for granted, but rather they are taken into account? How do we make sure that in our programming for orphans and vulnerable children, we understand the cultural resources that we need to rely on, because we are operating within the cultural context within Africa, and which is informed a lot by the Ubuntu philosophy? How do we make sure that, for example, we look at how at the values, for positive values within Ubuntu for child care, but also understand the social norms that might be harmful, linked to patriarchy, for example, especially hegemonic masculinity, or emphasize the femininity, which emphasizes that women become like worshippers of patriarchy. So how do we approach that and engage in gender responsive and gender transformative programming? If we are social workers, for example, and we are living in this culture, for example, in Rwanda or in Tanzania or in Ethiopia, which is heavily collectivistic, but we are doing an economic empowerment program. But we know that as we do this program, actually, because of patriarchy, there is a lot of controlling behavior that is given to men, and it is taken for granted because of the social norms. So how do we, in our process of indigenization of social work, in our process of making sure that we align the Ubuntu to the principles and values of social work, ensure that as we do economic empowerment, for example, for women, we also engage in gender transformative programming to make sure that the power that men have is used productively and constructively rather than destructively. So I think that this is a very good time to reflect on our social cultural values, social norms that are inherent within the broader Ubuntu context and philosophy that we subscribe to, but make sure that we are critical to ensure that these are aligned to the values and the principles of social work practice generally. And the more we review our curricula and critically look at our research agenda and make sure that as we do decoloniality, indigenization of social work, and take advantage of the Ubuntu philosophy to strengthen the contextualization of social work to our contexts, that we make sure that we are doing no harm is extremely important. And if this features within our research agenda and our curricula, that would be one of the ways in which, as the academia, for example, we contribute to the coloniality and the indigenization of social work, but without compromising the core principles and values of social worker practice. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Professor. I wonder if we can entertain one or two questions. If anyone has a question, just one question. Maybe if I go to Hue first, because I interrupted them and I didn't like that. So Hue, do you have any questions that you'd like to propose?
Thank you very much, Professor. My name is David. We're here in the room at Kigali. My question is, you really talked about the indigenization of our African philosophy, Ubuntu, but actually you did not link, if I'm not mistaken, how the indigenization of elements of our own African philosophy would lead to the achievement of SDGs, because the spearheading element of implementing the elements of Ubuntu as our African philosophy is all that we need to implement these elements of Ubuntu in the sake of achieving SDGs. And my question is, would you link like two principles of Ubuntu and the way it should be indigenized and how it will contribute to the achievement of SDGs? Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Can I respond to that?
Sorry, yes, you can respond to that.
Thank you very much. And I want to appreciate you for asking that question. How do we link Ubuntu to SDGs, for example, and achievement of those SDGs? When you look at Ubuntu, for example, one of the previous speakers already pointed out the fact that Ubuntu is looking at, reflects human characteristics of generosity, consideration, caring, and consideration for others. And Ubuntu emphasizes, Ubuntu has emphasis on humanity and suggests that whatever is good for humanity is Ubuntu, and whatever harms humanity is against Ubuntu. And when you say that my humanness is your humanness, so that means that we are connecting at a relational, communal, societal, environmental, and spiritual level. So I don't know if there is anything that is more positioned than Ubuntu then to contribute to achievement of the sustainable development goals, the SDGs, whether it is SDGs on climate change. If I value my relationship with the people around me and the environment, then that alone is a cultural resource, is a cultural and professional resource for achieving, for caring about climate change, because I'm caring about others. It is about generosity, consideration, caring, and consideration towards others. And I'm saying that anything that harms humanity is against Ubuntu. So you are not practicing Ubuntu if you are harming others. And if we are looking at issues of, for example, fairness, because Ubuntu is emphasizing fairness, community good, no harm to community, respect for others. This is very ethical. So, and it is only ESCO programming that can actually contribute to achievement of the sustainable development goals. For example, if you are looking at universal health coverage, if you are talking about universal social protection for everyone and universal health coverage, and you want everybody, so if you are caring about everyone to access health, to access social protection, all children to access child protection, then in this way, you are saying Ubuntu is the way to go. But what I say, what probably is very important, is to ensure that as we talk about Ubuntu, which says that an individual is obligated to contribute to the community, not only because it is expected of him or her, but because the community is him or her, that we make sure that that again does not take individuals captive and take their hold them hostage to even social norms that at a collective level of the community, but actually that harm realization of human rights, which are ideally inherent in all the SDGs. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you so much for that response. I think it really links well with the theme of the conference about Ubuntu and the SDGs. So thank you for that. We're now going to move on to a panel discussion from the IFSW Africa President and Vice President about social work councils in Africa.
Thank you. As Noel and Joachim comes on stage, I would like to request Paul to respond to some questions that have been shared on the online platform, just to respond to them via text. So Joachim, you can go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Can you put the presentation up? Bernard? Bernard, are you able to share the presentation?
Sure, you can go ahead. I'm uploading it in a moment.
All right, thank you so much. This presentation was is supposed to be a panel discussion, and I was to be joined by my president, Dr. Noah Murizo. I hope he's able to join in anytime. And I think for starters, I just wanted to speak to IFSW, that IFSW is the worldwide body of professional social workers, and comprising well over 140 professional social work associations across the globe. And also to say that in IFSW, we have 5 regions. And these 5 regions include Africa region. We have, if you can go down again. Yes, so we have Africa region, we have Asia Pacific, we have Europe, we have Latin America and the Caribbean, and then we have North America. So these 5 regions make up IFSW Global. So we are widespread, and we are covering all the regions and majority of countries across the globe. So in terms of the board, IFSW board is made up of course, representatives from the 5 regions, but headed by the global president, and our current president is Dr. Silvana Martinez, coming from Argentina. So you can check all that information on IFSW website. And so Africa region is, of course, there's myself and my president, Dr. Murizo. Then we have that team from Asia Pacific. And then we have the team led by Anna from Europe, and then the team led by Rari from Latin America, as well as the team led by Mildred from North America. So the question about accreditation, the question about recognition of the profession in Africa, as well as regulation. This is a very big question and a very hot question currently. And it's something that we haven't made a lot of progress as a region. And currently you note that we only have about 3 countries in Africa that have got social work legislation. So we have South Africa, who have the Council for Social Service Professions, which is kind of a cosmopolitan kind of arrangement, because in there they have social workers, they have childcare workers, as well as social auxiliary workers. But within the council, they also have kind of boards which looks at social workers, and then they have a board that focuses on childcare workers, and the other one on social auxiliary workers. So then the other one is Zimbabwe. They have the Social Work Council. And what is interesting also in Zimbabwe is that the Social Work Council was born out of the National Association there. And so currently we have the council, which is operating separate from the National Association. Of course, they are collaborating, but they are not like under one roof. There is a reason why I'm trying to emphasize that. I think we'll speak to that in a few minutes. And of course, the social work councils are there to help us, raise the standards of social work training and practice, as well as, of course, regulating the practice of social work. Of course, the other country that has currently an act of parliament or a council is Namibia. So there is what they call the Namibia Social Work and Psychology Act of 2004. And of course, the focus is on regulating social workers and psychologists. And the law specifies minimum requirements for a person to register as a social worker. So these are the only 3 countries currently. But there's been a movement within the region. And I think I should mention that quite a number of countries like Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Nigeria, I know of Malawi also, are on the route to getting to the level of having the social work councils in whatever form that may be. So in other countries, I'll give an example of Zambia. I think we've had a huge challenge in terms of opposition to this movement because currently we have non-trained social workers occupying or performing social work related functions. And over the years, they felt threatened by this movement. But there's been some engagements and of course some movements in terms of trying to be inclusive so that they don't feel threatened, but feel part and parcel of the movement. But going back to the issue to do with the models, that again has been an issue. So if you look at Namibia, you look at South Africa as well as Zimbabwe, the social work councils are kind of, I would say, autonomous. Like they are not kind of sitting under the National Association. And we made a visit sometime in 2017 as a national association in Zambia to learn from Zimbabwe. And we found that the model that they adopted had its own issues. Of course, every model will have the pros and cons, but it had its own issues, which for us, as we were trying to draft the bill, we took note of those issues and tried to be innovative to look at different models. So in Zambia, for instance, we've been proposing a model which is kind of hybrid, where the council will sit within the National Association. It has its own issues. We're trying to be careful, but we've been trying to learn from what is happening with the Law Association of Zambia, because they don't have a separate council from the association. So the council is within the association. And the reason that we're proposing this model for Zambia, and of course, that's how the bill has been drafted in this respect, is that we do not want to lose the aspect of the National Association. I'll not be specific in terms of what we saw somewhere else, but what I can say is that what we learned in some other places was that the council was kind of stronger when it was born compared to the National Association, because the council was born out of legislation, and people felt, or members felt, compelled by law to subscribe to council, but that was at the expense of the National Association. So they didn't feel compelled to make contributions to the National Association. So as a result, national associations, we're suffering in terms of resources. And of course, an association, a person chooses to belong or not to belong, to associate or not to associate. But we feel that we need to be strengthening the associations more, because of course the council may not necessarily be a member of IFSW, but the National Association. So those are some of the considerations that we're making. Of course, we've received a lot of criticisms, for Zambia in terms of the approach and the route that we've taken. But we said, fine, we will go ahead with this. And then, of course, when we learn lessons, we'll be able to deal with those as we move. So I know that Nigeria are on that route. Probably they should be able to share in terms of which model they've taken, whether they would love to have, the council within the association, or they'll have the council outside the association. And again, there are complications, because whenever you're trying to legislate, it means you are bringing government closer. And that sometimes, if you're not careful, government will hijack the council, and then you start dancing to the tune of government. And also that you may not, as council, or as a professional body, be able to hold government to account and do your advocacy work, and being able to point out certain issues that may require the voices of social workers. So those, again, are things that you got to be careful about. Where the council is hijacked by the regime, then you find yourselves not being able to operate professionally as a professional body. So those are some of the issues that are happening. I've heard also there are countries that in the West or like in Europe that have councils like the UK. And talking to colleagues from that end, I've also been trying to raise some fears about having councils, that sometimes councils become problematic to the profession and that the profession would not thrive kind of working independently. So again, there are fears in those lines and colleagues have been sharing those fears. So this is the route that we've taken, but we feel as a region, having councils, if you go to the other slide, I think the ninth slide. Yeah, so we feel that as a region, councils will be able to contribute to strengthening the social welfare workforce, because currently we feel that social workers are not supported. If you look at the framework for strengthening the social welfare workforce, it has mainly 3 pillars. It's about planning for the workforce. Okay, then it's about developing the workforce as well as supporting the workforce. So planning for the workforce also involves issues that governments should be able to project in terms of the workforce or the social workers that are required in that particular country, of course, based on the needs, and the issues that require social workers. So they should be able to project and plan for the workforce. But currently, I think there is a gap in that area. And then in terms of developing the workforce, of course, involves issues to do with training, because when you project and know the number of social workers that you require, then you should be able to, train or develop the workforce that you're looking for. So for me, I feel that currently, because we don't have legislation in this regard, it is really difficult to work in this area. And also the aspect of recognizing the profession. I think you and I know that in most countries, social work is not recognized as a profession. And in some places, people believe that every do-gooder, if I may use that word, is a social worker. So if I'm a pastor and I'm doing charitable work in my community, then I'm a social worker. I remember when I went to Zimbabwe in 2017, I heard that when our colleagues were pushing for a social work council, one minister said, look, in the village, I have my grandmother who is looking after 5 orphans. So my grandmother is a social worker. So there are all those, complexities. And probably that is the reason why in most countries, social work is not really recognized as a profession. We are kind of taken literally as do-gooders. And then, of course, being grouped with any other person that is, providing or the well-wisher or providing arms. So I think we feel that legislation will enhance the recognition of social work at that level. But again, it's not just about being recognized. It's also about us as social workers standing up to be counted and also demonstrating that there's value in social workers. I think that is quite important. And we feel also that legislation will help in terms of setting and monitoring standards of social work training and practice. We have, I know, as respective countries in Africa, we have our own the code of ethics, professional code of ethics, regardless whether it's homegrown or you adapted from someplace. It has to be that which helps, regulate the practice of social work in your respective countries. But we feel that having the code of ethics on its own is not enough because it's not enforceable. And we may require some kind of law to help us, enforce that and ensure that there is adherence to the code of ethics. And we feel also that the legislation will mandate professional bodies with the power to enforce the code of ethics as it were. And of course, we've talked about assuring quality of services provided by social work practitioners. We know that in some places, some countries will have private practitioners. Of course, the majority are in developed countries, but I know that in South Africa, including my country, we have people that have been doing private practice. But then there is also potential in that area to exploit service users, even when it comes to fees that are being charged. So we feel that such legislation will help in terms of standardizing the fees that are to be charged by private practitioners. So I think that is quite important. The last but not least, of course, we're talking about improving the well-being outcomes for the clientele receiving social work services, because if practitioners are adhering to the code of ethics in their practice, then of course we are assured of quality service provision. So we feel that it is a time really that we need to work around ensuring that all the countries have the councils, the social work councils. But we can't do that alone because legislation has to be passed through the government. And again, there are different approaches that we can use to have a government on board and understand that this is important to the profession. Key to this is to demonstrate as social workers that we are adding value to what is happening. We are adding value, for instance, to the social protection sector. We are adding value to, dealing with the different, social problems in our communities. But of course, if there is no value addition and government is not seeing any value addition, will continue not being recognized as a profession. Every time there is a problem, they only look around. Like during the pandemic, they may be looking around for health practitioners and other practitioners at the detriment of social workers. But of course, we play a very critical role in some of these things. Again, lessons we've learned, of course, from other countries that have got legislation is that we don't have to leave anyone behind. Currently, we have paraprofessionals working at the community level. And we also have non-social workers that have been practicing and have acquired experience over time. So we need to find a way of including them and being part of the process and the cadre that is offering social work services. So what we've tried to do in Zambia is that we've recognized that fact, and we've provided for a slot for paraprofessionals to be part and parcel of the profession, but at a different level. And also for those who are not necessarily social workers by training, but they've been practicing for years, they become social workers by experience. So we've also proposed in the bill that we are going to have a bridging course, which once the bill is passed, there will be a grace period, and that cadre will be subjected to that bridging course, which will be developed in partnership between the National Association and some universities offering social work. So we are looking at that to try and being inclusive so that people don't try out. Again, the point there also for paraprofessionals is that you cannot regulate the cadre that is not part, that is not with you. So we need to bring them closer and be able to regulate their practice, because their practice, of course, is within the sphere of social work practice, and it is impacting on the image of the profession. So we got to be inclusive, bring them closer, and be able to help them adhere to the social work code of ethics. Another key thing, I think, as we pursue this idea of, as we are on this movement of bringing social work councils, we got to be strategic and come up with advocacy strategies as national associations. So we need, of course, to be able to identify who our allies are, and of course, even the opponents, so that we are able to maneuver and get what we're looking for. So, of course, the advocate strategy will be help us come up with a clear roadmap in terms of how we move around that. And then we got to, of course, dramatize our existence as national associations in our respective countries, because government will not be moved by a silent association. They don't know about you. They don't know what you're doing. You're just quiet in some corner somewhere. So we should be able to rise and dramatize ourselves and demonstrate that we exist and that we are adding value to what is happening. So I think that is quite important. Then in terms of drafting bills, like for Zambia, we started ourselves. We had our ideas in terms of what we're looking for. So we had what we call the layman's bill. And but that was done through consulting other different documents. We looked at the Law Association of Zambia Act, and then looked within the region to see what we can borrow, and came up with a bill. Of course, it was subjected to professional drafting by legal practitioners. And I don't want to go, I mean, I can indicate that we've really reached some advanced stage in that regard, because our bill has passed through different stages up to a time now that we're waiting for it to get to Parliament. So, so we can develop our legislation, our bills, of course, making reference to what is existing in other countries and coming up with what we want. We do not need to reinvent the wheel when others have done that. Yeah. So I think we can open the discussion. I don't know how much time we have, just to learn from Nigeria in terms of how far you are and which model you've taken, and also other countries that may be on the same trajectory.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Mb Mustafa, once more again, the National President of Nigeria Association of Social Workers. I'm very happy to inform all of us that our bill is now in the red chamber of our National Assembly. And we are hoping that in the next few months, it will reach the office of Mr. President, that's the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for his assent. Initially, we started without taking cognizance of the fact that most of the humanitarian professions in Nigeria are being regulated. Most of the constitutions are under the domicile of the Federal's ministry. To say exactly is that most of these bills are controlled by government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that we have taken cognizance of. Initially, we wanted to be independent of the ministry, which was as a result of not taking cognizance of what has been happening in the country, that most of these councils and the humanitarian professions are controlled by government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The synergy has now been established between the ministry and between the association and the ministry. We are establishing a synergy and the understanding that this council will be controlled by the government, by the under the domicile of the Spafrestry ministry, and this has yielded positive results. We are very optimistic that in the very near future, this bill will be transmitted to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are very optimistic because we are working in synergy with the ministries that are major stakeholders in this project. And I can assure you all, with all sense of modesty, that our bill is on course. It's in the Red Chamber of the National Assembly, and we are very optimistic about it being passed anytime from now. We are very optimistic that the bill will pass anytime from now.
Thank you so much. Any other country that want to, even those that are following us those that have joined in on Zoom? Uganda?
Hello. Yes. Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dennis. I come from Uganda. Right now, I'm in Portugal. I want to thank you for your presentation, which is quite enriching for me. The issues you have alluded to, the challenges that our region is going through, I think is not also any different from what some of the European countries are going through. 2 or 3 days ago, I had an interaction with a professor from one of the universities in Lisbon. And so far, they have taken over 20 years in struggling to have their profession registered, to become formally recognized. And this one of the key challenges that I got from this interaction was that there is a lot of fear in other professionals in seeing social work become independent and regularized. Professions such as sociologists are trying to fight it hard, even when Parliament has already passed a law for social work to become independent. So I think what is key is that you, as an association, but also as a profession, we need to up our game, and we need to reach the power center. Where's the power center? The power center is in the presidency, the power center is in the ministries, and we need to make these our allies. And some social workers need also to, I think we need to send social workers to Parliament, because that's where the law is made, and that's where the debate is. We need to have social workers in the area of the media, because the media shapes the debate on what is valid and what is not valid. So we need allies in those, I think, in those areas. Lastly, I wanted to make an appeal. IFSW Africa, I think you are contributing a lot to IFW's, the globe. I think the time has come that we also need leadership from Global South. I don't know when is the next election, but I think Africa should also be able to sit at the top and lead the IFSW Global. And I believe that will also have a trickle-down effect on having some of these issues resolved. Lastly, we have talked about Ubuntu and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think if we use the Ubuntu principles, we shall achieve. But the challenge is, I see the Western side of the world ring-fencing social work. And yet we claim to have shared values, shared principles in social work. But then I see an exclusion of social workers from the Global South, that in order for you to practice in any European country, you need to be registered. And one of the requirements for registration is not the degree or the social work training you have had, but it is something to do with the English, the language. Now, for me, it is so mesmerizing that, like my country, which is Uganda, we are colonized by Britain. The British introduced educational system, which is in English, which is their language, and we have complied with this. And from the lowest level up to the highest level of our training. But you find that for you to practice anywhere, you are supposed to use a language, and they tell you you have to redo this language test and so on. So one does. This is their language. We have tried to struggle with it for all these years, but still someone is saying, no, the one you have is not good enough. So what is it which is good enough? That is something which has been puzzling me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm seeing a hand there, but we're running out of time. So I don't know how many questions or contributions we could.
For 2 minutes, you can get one contribution.
There's a hand there. I think you are muted. That's Professor. Oh, it's the same person. Okay. There was a hand behind there.
My name is Moise Munyamariza. I am thankful to you. As you said, you as social workers, we must dramatize our existence. I'm strongly with you on your side, because from my experience, some social workers are not distinguish themselves from other practitioners in social welfare or social service institutions. So I need to encourage my colleagues to really dramatize their existence wherever they are. And one of the strengths from young practitioners or students from social work is to organize interactions between old practitioners, lecturers, and the young and the student social workers, so that they can get strength, that strength which will help them to dramatize their existence. I really appreciate what someone said, the presence of social work on media. We must be present there to dramatize ourselves on media. And he again said, social workers at center. If we don't have regulations, if we don't have councils, it's because sometimes we don't have ubuntu. Of course, I cannot say that we didn't do nothing. I appreciate what you have done at global level, what you have done at regional level, and what you have done at national level. And I strongly appreciate what has been done here in Rwanda for social workers. But we still need to push up and to have strong regulations, councils, because you are able and more than able to reach the center. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Maybe just in conclusion, I just want to say that there is a lot of goodwill to support national associations to have legislation and councils. I should mention that as a region, we've been working in close collaboration with UNICEF SRO. I was just checking if Eri is there to maybe just come in briefly and talk about the work that we've done together in Zambia. But I should mention that with support from UNICEF SRO in Zambia, we've even developed the National Social Workers Competency Framework. which of course is going to work side by side with the Act of Parliament once passed. I can see Nami, I think she's there. I don't know whether she would want to make a comment to that effect. And also to say that the region, UNICEF SRO are ready to provide support within the region in terms of helping national associations get there. We've also developed what we are calling the licensing framework for social workers. So at least we are getting the ground ready so that once we have an act of parliament, then it will be easier to implement having all these processes in place. Thank you so much.
Big clap to Joachim. Joachim, thank you. As we are closing the morning session, I would like to add that even in Rwanda, National Organization of Social Workers does not have its own council. We don't have social worker council. We are struggling as we are growing up. We are struggling to have in the future our own council, but nowadays social workers who graduate are accredited by the Rwanda Allied Health Professionals. But as you know, social workers are not specialized in health only. They are in different domains, as we said, human rights, community development, gender mainstream, and the other specializations that are not looked at by the Rwanda Allied Health Professionals Council. So it will be better if we get our own social workers council, which will encompass all the social work specializations. We'll keep on cooperating with you. IFSW Africa region will learn from you, learning from other countries, how they got to that, they have reached that step, because it is really of paramount importance as far as professionalization of social work is concerned. Thank you very much. Audience, thank you. Now the morning session is over. I welcome you, when you come from lunch, I will welcome you to the live streamed sessions for the final outcomes and remarks from the conference. You know, we had many presentations, many sessions from Tuesday up to now. So please go to lunch and hurry up at the 2 p.m. We'll be here to start with the conference outcome. Thank you.